The coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and broken dreams, and Chen was about to add hers to the list. She clutched her portfolio against her chest, the leather worn smooth from too many interviews, too many rejections. The architectural firm she was heading to, Preston and Associates, represented her last real shot at staying in Seattle. After that, she would have to accept defeat and move back to her parents' place in Ohio, tail between her legs, degree gathering dust. 26 years old with a master's in architecture from a prestigious university, and she could not land a single position. The economy had been brutal to fresh graduates, and firms wanted experience she did not have. It was the classic trap. Cannot get a job without experience, cannot get experience without a job. Emma ordered a black coffee she could not afford and found a corner table. The interview was not for another 20 minutes, but she needed to calm her nerves. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone, reading through her notes one more time. A man sat down at the table next to hers, his presence commanding enough that she noticed despite her anxiety. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that looked professionally styled but slightly mussed, as if he had been running his hands through it. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her rent, and he moved with the easy confidence of someone who had never doubted his place in the world. Emma forced her attention back to her notes. She could not afford distractions. Her phone buzzed. A text from the receptionist at Preston and Associates. "Mr. Preston is ready for you now. Please come up to the 14th floor." Emma's stomach dropped. She was early, way too early, but the text was clear. She grabbed her things, nearly knocking over her untouched coffee in her haste. The building was only 2 blocks away, all glass and steel reaching toward the gray Seattle sky. Emma's heels clicked against the marble floor of the lobby, each step echoing her mounting dread. Something felt off. Interviews did not start 15 minutes early. The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors opened on the 14th floor, a receptionist with a pinched expression looked up. "Chen." "Yes, I'm here for. Mr. Preston will see you now. Last door on the left." No offer of water, no friendly small talk. Emma's unease grew. The office was sleek and modern, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. But Emma barely noticed the view. James Preston sat behind his desk, mid-50s, with the kind of face that seemed permanently set to disapproval. Another man stood by the window, younger, arms crossed. "Miss Chen." Preston did not stand, did not offer his hand. "Sit." Emma sat, arranging her portfolio on her lap. "I will be direct," Preston said, his tone already dismissive. "Your application showed promise on paper. However, after reviewing your portfolio more carefully, I have concerns." 20 seconds. The interview had been going for 20 seconds. "I understand," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I would be happy to address any specific concerns." "Your designs are too ambitious," the other man cut in. His name tag read Michael Preston. "Son," Emma realized. "Too conceptual. We deal with real clients who want practical buildings, not art projects." Emma felt heat rise in her chest. With respect, architecture should be both functional and inspired. The projects in my portfolio were designed with specific client needs in mind. "This one," James Preston said, flipping open her portfolio to a mixed-use development she had designed for her thesis. "Completely impractical. The budget would be astronomical. No real client would approve this." "The assignment specified no budget constraints," Emma countered. "It was meant to showcase innovative design thinking." "Which is exactly the problem," Michael interrupted. "You are not thinking like an architect. You are thinking like an artist. There is a difference. Emma's fingernails dug into her palms. I graduated top of my class. My professors said. Your professors, James Preston said, his tone dripping with condescension, do not run architectural firms in the real world. Let me be frank, Miss Chen. You are inexperienced. Your ideas are unrealistic, and frankly, I question whether you have the practical mindset we require. The words hit like physical blows. Emma opened her mouth, closed it again. Furthermore, James continued, clearly enjoying himself now, your resume shows no internships during your studies. That suggests a lack of initiative or perhaps an inability to secure positions, neither of which reflects well. I worked 2 jobs to pay for school, Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. I could not afford to take unpaid internships. Michael scoffed. Everyone makes sacrifices. Perhaps you should have prioritized differently. The room tilted. Emma stood abruptly, her portfolio sliding to the floor, papers scattered across the expensive carpet. Thank you for your time, she managed, kneeling to gather her work with shaking hands. Miss Chen, there is no need to be dramatic, James Preston began, but Emma was already moving toward the door. She made it to the elevator before the tears came. What Emma did not know was that the man from the coffee shop, the one in the expensive suit, had walked into the same building 5 minutes after her. His name was Ryan Cross, and he owned Cross Development, one of the largest private real estate development companies in the Pacific Northwest. His office took up the entire 15th floor, directly above Preston and Associates. Ryan had been heading to the elevator when he heard raised voices through the thin walls. Preston's office shared a wall with the elevator bank, and the ventilation system carried sound better than it should. Ryan had paused, hand on the elevator button as the conversation filtered through. He heard every word. The dismissiveness, the condescension, the casual cruelty. Ryan knew James Preston professionally. The man was a mediocre architect who had built his firm on his father's reputation and coasted on commercial projects that prioritized profit over quality. Ryan used Preston's firm occasionally when he needed quick, budget designs for basic projects, but he had never respected the man. Now, listening to Preston tear apart some young candidate, Ryan felt his jaw tighten. He had been in enough meetings to recognize talent being dismissed. He had heard the woman, Emma, defend her work with passion and intelligence, only to be shut down at every turn. When Emma burst from Preston's office, tears streaming down her face, papers clutched to her chest, Ryan stepped back into the hallway. She did not see him. She was too focused on escaping, on holding herself together. The elevator doors closed behind her, and Ryan stood there for a long moment, thinking. Then he pulled out his phone and called his assistant. David, I need you to pull security footage from the lobby. Woman, mid-20s, Asian, carrying a leather portfolio. Find out her name and get me her contact information. Sir, just do it, and get me her resume if she applied anywhere in this building. Ryan took the stairs to his office, his mind already working. He had built Cross Development from nothing over the past 8 years, turning a small inheritance and a lot of ambition into a company worth hundreds of millions. He had done it by recognizing talent others overlooked, by taking chances on people who had something to prove. And he had heard something in Emma Chen's voice that interested him. Not just passion, but a fundamental understanding of what architecture should be, the kind of thinking his company needed. 15 minutes later, David appeared in his office doorway. Emma Chen, 26, Masters in Architecture from Cornell. She applied to Preston and Associates, Morrison Design Group, and Hewitt Studios, all in this building. Ryan smiled. Get me her number. Sir, that is technically a privacy violation. David. His assistant sighed. I will have it in 5 minutes. Ryan stared out his window at the city below. Seattle was growing faster than its infrastructure could handle, and cross-development was at the forefront of that growth. But Ryan was tired of the cookie-cutter designs most firms provided. He wanted buildings that meant something, that added value to neighborhoods rather than just filling space. His phone buzzed. A text from David with a phone number and an attached resume. Ryan opened the resume, scanning quickly. Cornell, top of her class, thesis on sustainable mixed-use development in urban environments. Worked 25 hours a week throughout her graduate program. No internships, but glowing letters of recommendation from 3 prominent professors. He looked at her portfolio samples, the ones David had pulled from her online presence. The thesis project Preston had dismissed showed a complex understanding of urban planning, environmental sustainability, and community needs. It was ambitious, yes, but it was also brilliant. Ryan picked up his phone and dialed before he could second-guess himself. Emma had made it back to her apartment, a tiny studio in Capitol Hill that smelled like the curry the neighbors cooked every night. She had cried in the elevator, in her car, and then for another 20 minutes on her bathroom floor. Now she sat on her second-hand couch, staring at her portfolio spread across the coffee table. Maybe Preston was right. Maybe she was too idealistic, too impractical. Maybe she should have compromised more, designed buildings that were safe and boring and eminently buildable. Her phone rang. Unknown number, probably a spam call, but she answered anyway. Hello, Emma Chen. Yes. My name is Ryan Cross. I am the CEO of Cross Development. I know this is unusual, but I overheard your interview at Preston and Associates this morning. Emma's blood ran cold. I do not understand. I have an office in the same building. The walls are thin. Ryan's voice was warm, professional. I heard how James Preston spoke to you, and I heard you defend your work. I was impressed. Impressed that I failed an interview so badly the man in the next office overheard it. Emma's laugh was bitter. Impressed by your passion and your understanding of what good architecture should be, Ryan said. Preston is an idiot. His firm produces adequate work at best. I use them when I need something cheap and fast, but I have been looking for an architect with vision. Someone who sees buildings as more than just boxes to fill with tenants. Emma's heart was pounding. I do not understand what you want. I want to offer you a position, lead architect for Cross Development's new Sustainable Communities Initiative. It is a project I have been planning for 2 years, and I need someone who thinks the way you do. You heard a 5-minute conversation through a wall. I also read your resume and looked at your work. David, my assistant, is efficient. Ryan paused. I know this sounds insane. I am not usually this impulsive. But I have been in this business long enough to recognize talent. And I heard something in your voice this morning, the way you talked about design, the way you defended your vision. That is what I need. Emma stared at her portfolio. This had to be a joke, a prank. Maybe Preston had set it up somehow. Miss Chen, I understand your skepticism. Let me propose something. Come to my office tomorrow at 10. We will talk about the position. You can ask whatever questions you want, and if you decide it is not for you, no hard feelings. But give me a chance to show you what I am building. I do not even know who you are, Emma said. Google me, Cross Development. I will text you my office address. Think about it. He hung up before she could respond. Emma immediately opened her laptop. Ryan Cross, CEO of Cross Development. His photo showed the man from the coffee shop, the one who had been sitting next to her. She scrolled through article after article. Forbes had profiled him 2 years ago. The developer who gives a damn. He had built his company with a focus on sustainable development, affordable housing mixed with market-rate units, green spaces, community planning. This was not some scam. Ryan Cross was the real deal, and he had just offered her a job based on an overheard interview. Emma did not sleep that night. The next morning, she dressed in her best interview suit, the navy one she had worn dozens of times. But this time felt different. She was not desperate. She was curious. Cross Development occupied the entire 15th floor, and the moment Emma stepped off the elevator, she knew this was different from every other firm she had visited. The reception area featured a stunning architectural model of a mixed-use development. Trees and green spaces integrated throughout. The walls displayed renderings of completed projects, each one thoughtfully designed with attention to both form and function. Miss Chen, a young man approached, tablet in hand. "I am David, Mr. Cross's assistant. He is ready for you." Ryan's office was twice the size of Preston's, but it felt warmer, more lived in. Architectural drawings covered one entire wall, held up with multicolored pins. Books on urban planning and sustainable design packed floor-to-ceiling shelves. And Ryan himself stood at a drafting table, sleeves rolled up, studying a blueprint. He looked up when Emma entered, and his smile was genuine. "You came. I was not entirely sure you would." "I almost did not," Emma admitted. "Fair enough. Please sit." Ryan gestured to a seating area by the windows. "Can I get you coffee? Actually good coffee, not the stuff you were drinking yesterday." "You saw me. I was at the table next to you. You looked terrified." His expression softened. "I have been there. Different circumstances, but I remember that feeling of everything riding on one conversation." Emma sat, still wary. "Why did you really call me?" Ryan settled into the chair across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "Because Preston is an idiot, and I am tired of mediocre architecture. I have built Cross Development into a successful company, but success means nothing if what we are building is just more of the same uninspired commercial work. I want to do something different." He stood and walked to his desk, returning with a thick folder. "This is the Riverside Project, 200 acres along the Duwamish River. The city approved my proposal 6 months ago. Mixed-use development, 20% affordable housing, commercial space for local businesses, parks, community centers. I want to build something that actually serves the neighborhood, not just displaces it." Emma opened the folder, scanning through preliminary plans. Her heart started to race. This was exactly the kind of project she had dreamed of working on. "These are good," she said, studying a site plan. "But the residential buildings are too uniform. You could break them up more, create different scales and heights to make it feel less like a complex and more like a neighborhood." Ryan smiled. "That is exactly what I thought. The architect who did these preliminary drawings is solid, but he thinks in terms of efficiency over community. I need someone who thinks differently." "You are talking about redesigning this entire project." "I am talking about bringing it to life the way it should be, with someone who understands what I am trying to do." Ryan sat back down. "The position is lead architect. You would work with a team of 3 junior architects and 2 drafters. Starting salary is $95,000, full benefits, equity options after the first year." Emma's mouth went dry. 95,000. That was more than she had hoped to make in her first 3 years. "This is insane," she whispered. "It is an opportunity," Ryan corrected. "I know I am asking you to trust me based on one conversation, but I built this company on instinct and calculated risks. You are both." Emma looked at him, really looked at him. He was probably in his early 30s, confident without being arrogant, passionate about his work in a way that reminded her of why she had chosen architecture in the first place. "I do not have experience," she said. Preston was right about that. "You have education, vision, and drive. Experience is just time plus opportunity. I am offering you the opportunity." Ryan leaned forward. "I am not saying it would be easy. The Riverside project is massive and complex. There are community stakeholders, environmental concerns, budget constraints. But I heard you defend your thesis project to Preston. You understand that real architecture happens within constraints, not in spite of them." Emma's hands trembled slightly as she set down the folder. "Can I see the site?" Ryan's smile widened. "I was hoping you would ask. My car is downstairs." They drove south in Ryan's Tesla, through industrial areas slowly being reclaimed by new development. Ryan talked about his vision for the project, how he had spent 2 years working with community organizers to understand what the neighborhood actually needed. "Most developers come in with a plan and try to sell it," he said, navigating through traffic. "I spent 6 months just listening, talking to residents, business owners, community leaders. The plan evolved from those conversations." "That must have been expensive," Emma said. "It was an investment, but it means when we build, we are building something people actually want. That makes it easier to lease, easier to sell, and better for everyone involved." The site was stunning, a stretch of waterfront that had been industrial for decades but was now empty, waiting. Emma walked the property, her mind already racing with possibilities. She could see it, the way buildings could step down toward the water, creating view corridors. How green spaces could connect different areas, the way residential and commercial could integrate without one overwhelming the other. Ryan watched her, not interrupting, letting her think. Finally, Emma turned to face him. "If I take this job, I need creative control over the design. I will work within your budget and your community commitments, but I need to know you will trust my judgment. That is why I am hiring you. I am serious. I have read about developers who hire architects and then micromanage every decision. I cannot work that way." Ryan met her eyes. "I promise you creative control, with the understanding that we will collaborate. This is still my project, my company, my reputation on the line. But I am not hiring you to execute my vision. I am hiring you to create it." Emma took a deep breath. "Then I accept." Ryan's smile was brilliant. "Welcome to Cross Development." They shook hands there on the empty lot, the Seattle skyline rising in the distance, neither of them realizing how much that handshake would change both their lives. Emma started the following Monday. Ryan had not been exaggerating about the team. 3 junior architects, all young and hungry, and 2 experienced drafters. He set her up in an office with windows overlooking the city and a workspace large enough to spread out drawings and models. The first week was overwhelming. Emma met with engineers, contractors, environmental consultants, community representatives. Ryan was right that the project was complex. Every decision affected 5 other things. But it was also exhilarating. Emma would sketch ideas late into the evening, exploring different approaches to the residential buildings, playing with how the structures could respond to the waterfront location. Ryan would stop by her office around 7 or 8, after most people had gone home, and they would talk through her ideas. "What if we angled this building?" Emma said one evening, pointing at her latest sketch. "It opens up a sight line to the water from the street." Ryan studied the drawing. "That makes the floor plates irregular. Harder to build, more expensive, but better." Emma looked at him. "You hired me for vision, remember?" He laughed. "Fair point. Show me how it works with the rest of the plan." These late evening sessions became routine. Ryan would bring coffee from the good place down the street, and they would spread drawings across Emma's desk, debating design decisions, pushing each other. Emma learned that Ryan had studied business, but had always been fascinated by architecture. He understood buildings in a way most developers did not, saw them as ecosystems rather than just products. "My father was a contractor," Ryan told her one evening, 3 weeks into her employment. "Blue collar, worked his way up from nothing. He taught me to respect buildings, to understand that every choice matters. When I started this company, I knew I did not want to just make money. I wanted to build things worth building." "Is that why you are dumping millions into a project that would be more profitable if you just put up standard apartment blocks?" Emma asked. "Exactly." Ryan smiled. "My accountant thinks I am insane, but I watched too many neighborhoods get destroyed by lazy development. Seattle is changing fast. I want to be part of making it better, not just denser." Emma found herself looking forward to these conversations, not just because of the work, but because of Ryan himself. He listened in a way few people did, engaged with ideas, pushed back when he disagreed, but always with respect. And there was something else, a warmth in his eyes when he looked at her work, a pride that made her feel seen. One Friday evening, 6 weeks after Emma started, Ryan knocked on her office door around 9. "You are still here," he said. "I am trying to solve the parking problem without building an ugly garage," Emma said, frustrated. She had been working on it for days. "Take a break, come with me." "Where?" "It is a surprise." Emma followed him to the elevator, curious. They drove to the waterfront, to a construction site Emma recognized as one of Cross Development's completed projects. A mixed-use building with retail on the ground floor and condos above, landscaping softening the edges. "I finished this 2 years ago," Ryan said, leading her inside. "Before I really knew what I was doing, but it was a start." He used a key to access the elevator and took them to the roof. The view was breathtaking. Elliott Bay spread out before them, the city lights reflecting on the water. "When I am stuck on a problem, I come here," Ryan said. "Reminds me why I do this." Cities are beautiful. They deserve beautiful buildings. Emma stood at the edge, the wind pulling at her hair. "Thank you for this. The job, the opportunity. 6 weeks ago, I thought my career was over. 6 weeks ago, James Preston was an idiot," Ryan said, coming to stand beside her. "His loss is my gain." Emma glanced at him. He was watching the city, his profile strong in the ambient light. She had been trying not to notice how attractive he was, trying to keep things professional. But it was getting harder. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said. "Anything. Why did you really hire me? The truth." Ryan turned to face her. "The truth is that I heard someone defend their vision with passion, intelligence, and courage, even when they were being torn apart. That is rare. Most people would have wilted or gotten angry. You stayed focused on the work, on what mattered. I need that." "And," he smiled, "and I looked at your designs and saw what I have been trying to articulate for years. Buildings that serve people, not the other way around. You get it instinctively." They stood there in the cool night air, and Emma felt something shift between them. A recognition, an attraction that went beyond professional respect. "We should get back," Ryan said finally, his voice slightly rough. "Early meeting Monday." The drive back was quiet, charged with things unsaid. Over the next month, Emma threw herself into the Riverside project. She worked with the community representatives, incorporating their feedback, finding ways to balance aesthetics with practicality. The design started to take real shape: residential buildings that stepped down toward the water, commercial spaces that opened onto a central plaza, green corridors connecting everything. Ryan watched her work with growing admiration, and something deeper he was trying to ignore. Emma was brilliant, dedicated, and exactly what his company needed. But she was also funny in unexpected ways, passionate about things beyond architecture, kind to everyone on the team. And when she smiled, really smiled, it made his chest tight. He knew getting involved with an employee was complicated, but he also knew he was falling for her. The moment everything changed came 3 months after Emma started. She was presenting the final design concepts to the full team, her ideas displayed on large screens. Ryan watched from the back of the conference room as Emma walked through each element, answering questions, defending choices, collaborating. She was magnetic. Not just because she was talented, but because she made everyone around her better. The junior architects had grown under her mentorship, contributing ideas they never would have suggested before. The engineers respected her because she listened to their constraints. Even the contractors, usually skeptical of young architects, appreciated her practical understanding of construction. After the meeting, Ryan followed Emma back to her office. "That was incredible," he said. Emma turned, surprised. "You think so?" "I felt like I rushed through the commercial section." "It was perfect. You are perfect for this." Ryan paused. "Emma, I need to tell you something." She waited, her expression open. "This is complicated," Ryan said, running a hand through his hair. "You work for me, and I do not want you to feel uncomfortable or pressured, but I have to be honest. I have developed feelings for you, more than professional respect." Emma's breath caught. "Ryan, I am not asking you for anything," he continued quickly. "I just needed you to know. Because it is affecting my judgment. I find myself stopping by your office too often. I think about you when I am not here. And I realized I could not keep working with you without being honest about it." Emma crossed her arms, then dropped them, clearly struggling with her own response. "I have been trying not to think about you that way. You are my boss. You gave me this incredible opportunity. I did not want to complicate it." "Have been trying." Ryan caught the past tense. She met his eyes. "I have feelings for you too. I have for weeks, but I do not know what to do about it." Ryan stepped closer. "We could start with dinner, somewhere away from the office. As two people, not boss and employee." "That is still complicated." "Everything worth doing is complicated," Ryan smiled. "Look, I am not going to pressure you. But I have spent 8 years building this company, and I have never let myself care about anything except work. Then you walked into my life defending a thesis project to an idiot, and suddenly work is not enough anymore." Emma laughed, a sound that made Ryan's heart skip. "That is quite a line." "It is not a line, it is the truth." She studied him for a long moment. "Okay, dinner, but we take this slow. The Riverside project is too important to mess up, because we are navigating a relationship." "Slow is good," Ryan agreed, though his smile suggested he was not sure he could manage slow when it came to Emma. Their first date was at a small Italian restaurant in Fremont, tucked away from the tech crowd. Ryan had made reservations under a fake name to avoid any business acquaintances. Emma wore a blue dress that made her eyes shine, and Ryan could barely focus on the menu. They talked for 3 hours, covering everything from their childhoods to their dreams. Ryan learned that Emma's parents had immigrated from Taiwan before she was born, that she had a younger brother studying medicine, that she loved hiking but was terrible at camping. Emma learned that Ryan had built cross-development after his father died, using a small inheritance and determination to prove he could create something meaningful. "My dad never got to see this," Ryan said quietly. "He passed right when I was starting out, but I think he would be proud of what I am building." Emma reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "I think he would be incredibly proud." The touch sent electricity through Ryan's body. He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers with hers. "This is real, is not it?" he said. "Yes," Emma whispered. "It is real." They dated carefully for the next month, keeping it private from the office. Dinners, walks along the waterfront, stolen kisses in the parking garage after everyone had left. Emma had never felt like this before, safe and exhilarated at the same time. Ryan was thoughtful and passionate, ambitious but grounded. He challenged her intellectually and supported her emotionally. And he was falling completely in love with her. It became obvious one evening when they were at Ryan's condo, a penthouse in Belltown with stunning views. Emma was cooking dinner, moving around his kitchen like she belonged there, and Ryan watched her with an expression of complete contentment. "What?" Emma asked, catching him staring. "I love you," Ryan said simply. Emma's hand stilled on the cutting board. "What?" "I love you. I have probably loved you since you accepted my job offer standing on that empty lot. But I definitely love you now. Watching you make pasta in my kitchen like this is where you have always been." Emma set down the knife and walked to where he sat at the counter. "That is a big thing to say. I know, and you do not have to say it back, but I needed you to know." Emma cupped his face in her hands. "I love you too. I have been trying not to say it because it feels too soon, too fast, but I do. I love you." Ryan kissed her then, deep and slow, pouring everything he felt into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma laughed. "We are terrible at taking this slow." "The worst," Ryan agreed, pulling her close again. They decided to tell the office about their relationship after the Riverside project got final approval from the city. Emma did not want anyone thinking she had gotten the position or the project approval because of personal connections. Ryan agreed, though he hated hiding what they had. The approval came through in late spring, 6 months after Emma started. The city council praised the design, calling it a model for future development. Community representatives spoke in favor, emphasizing how the project reflected their needs. It was a triumph. That evening, Ryan called an all-staff meeting. "I want to share some news," he said, Emma standing beside him. "As most of you know, Emma has led the Riverside project from concept through approval. Her work has been exceptional, and she is a huge part of our success." Applause filled the room. Emma blushed. "I also want to be transparent about something personal," Ryan continued. "Emma and I have been dating for the past few months. We kept it private during the approval process to avoid any conflicts of interest. But we are together, and I want everyone to know that our relationship does not change the professional expectations or standards here." There were surprised murmurs, but also smiles. David, Ryan's assistant, looked completely unsurprised, which made Emma suspect he had known for weeks. After the meeting, Several team members approached Emma privately to congratulate her, both on the project and the relationship. No one seemed uncomfortable or concerned about favoritism. Ryan's respect for Emma's work was obvious to everyone. "That went better than I expected," Emma told Ryan later in his office. "Because everyone can see you earned this position," Ryan said. "And because I am pretty sure David has been running interference on my behalf, making sure no one thought I was playing favorites. Remind me to thank David." Ryan pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "We do not have to hide anymore." "Good, because I am terrible at hiding." Construction on the Riverside project began that summer. Emma was on site constantly, working with contractors, solving problems, ensuring the design translated properly into reality. Ryan watched her thrive, her confidence growing as the buildings took shape, but not everything was smooth. In August, the project hit a major snag. The primary contractor discovered soil contamination from the site's industrial past, worse than initial testing had shown. Remediation would cost an additional $3 million and delay construction by 6 months. Ryan called an emergency meeting with the full team, his expression grim. "We have options," he said. "We can redesign to avoid the contaminated areas, which would compromise the plan. We can eat the cost and delay, which puts us dangerously over budget. Or we can try to negotiate a settlement with the previous property owners, which could take years." Emma studied the contamination reports. "What if we turn it into a feature?" Everyone looked at her. "The contaminated soil has to be removed regardless," she said, thinking out loud. "What if we use that excavation to create a stormwater management system? Build it into the landscape design as a wetland feature. It addresses environmental concerns, adds value to the project, and turns a problem into an asset." The environmental consultant leaned forward. "That could actually work. It would require redesigning the landscaping and getting additional permits, but it is feasible." Ryan looked at Emma with pride and love. "Do it. Emma, you lead the redesign." The next 3 months were intense. Emma worked with environmental engineers to design a constructed wetland that would filter stormwater runoff while providing habitat for local wildlife. It became a centerpiece of the project, something that set Riverside apart from every other development in the city. The delay ended up being only 4 months, and the additional cost was offset by grants for green infrastructure. The project was back on track. That evening, Ryan found Emma on the construction site, watching the sun set over the partially built structures. "You saved it," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "We saved it," Emma corrected, leaning into him. "This whole project is ours." "I have been thinking," Ryan said, "about us, about the future." Emma turned in his arms to face him. "What about it?" "I want you in it, permanently. Not just as my lead architect, though I want that too, but as my partner in everything." Emma's heart raced. "Ryan, are you?" "I am not proposing, not yet." He smiled. "I am just telling you where my head is, where my heart is. I want to build a life with you, Emma. I want to come home to you every night and wake up next to you every morning. I want to fight about design decisions and then make up by ordering too much Thai food. I want everything." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "I want that too, all of it." "Good." Ryan kissed her softly. "Because you are stuck with me now." The Riverside project was completed in phases over the next 18 months. The first residential building opened in spring, with families moving into apartments that featured the thoughtful design Emma had envisioned. The commercial spaces filled with local businesses, a coffee shop, a bookstore, a child care center. The wetland became a community gathering space, with paths and benches where people could watch birds and enjoy nature in the middle of the city. Emma walked through the completed plaza one afternoon, overwhelmed by seeing her designs brought to life. Children played in the fountain she had fought to include. Neighbors chatted on benches positioned to catch the afternoon sun. A couple kissed under the pergola she had designed to support climbing vines. "Pretty amazing, is not it?" Ryan said, appearing beside her. "It is surreal. I drew this on paper and now it is real. People are living their lives in something I created." "You created something beautiful and meaningful," Ryan said. "This is just the beginning." He was right. The success of the Riverside project brought cross-development national attention. Architecture magazines featured Emma's work. Other cities reached out, interested in similar projects. Ryan was offered partnerships, expansion opportunities, chances to scale the company significantly. But he turned most of them down, focusing instead on carefully selected projects that aligned with his values. Emma became a full partner in cross-development, her name added to the company leadership. Together, they built a reputation for thoughtful, community-focused development that proved profitable and principled work could coexist. 2 years after Emma started at Cross Development, Ryan took her back to the roof where he had first told her why he hired her. The city spread out before them, more beautiful than ever in the evening light. "I have been thinking about what you said," Emma said. "That night when you told me you loved me for the first time. About your father not getting to see what you built." "I think about that a lot," Ryan admitted. "I wish I could have met him, but I think he would be proud. Not just of the buildings, but of the person you are. The way you care about doing things right, about treating people well, about making things better." Ryan turned to her, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Emma Chen, you walked into my life when I had everything except what mattered. You brought vision and passion and purpose. You made me want to build a life, not just a company. I love you more than I knew I could love anyone. Will you marry me?" Emma's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Yes. Yes, of course yes." Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple platinum band with a single diamond that caught the city lights. Then he kissed her, and Emma felt her whole world align. "I cannot believe this started with James Preston being a jerk," Emma said, laughing through tears. "Remind me to send him a thank you note," Ryan said. "Absolutely not." They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony on the Riverside project site, surrounded by friends, family, and the buildings they had created together. Emma's parents flew in from Ohio, proud beyond words of their daughter. Ryan's mother cried through the entire ceremony, telling Emma afterward that she reminded her of Ryan's father, stubborn and brilliant and full of heart. David served as Ryan's best man, of course. The junior architects Emma had mentored were her bridesmaids. The ceremony was simple but perfect, vows spoken as the sun set over the water, promising to build a life together with the same care and passion they brought to their work. Emma wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers. Ryan wore a tailored suit and could not stop smiling. When the officiant pronounced them married, Ryan picked Emma up and spun her around, both of them laughing with pure joy. The reception was held in the community center at Riverside, the space transformed with lights and flowers. They danced to jazz, ate too much cake, and celebrated with the people who had supported them. Late in the evening, Ryan and Emma slipped away to walk through the project, just the two of them. They passed residential buildings where lights glowed in windows, families settling in for the night. They walked through the plaza where their relationship had evolved from professional to personal. They stood by the wetland where frogs sang in the gathering darkness. "This is ours," Emma said softly. "Not just the project, but everything, the life we are building." "Best thing I ever created," Ryan said, pulling her close. "Better than the coffee shop project." "Way better than the coffee shop project." He kissed her hair. "Though that one was pretty good too." They moved into Ryan's penthouse together, though they spent most evenings at the office, working on new projects. Cross-development continued to grow, but thoughtfully, always staying true to the values that had defined it from the beginning. A year into their marriage, Emma discovered she was pregnant. She told Ryan on site at their newest project, a mixed-use development in Portland that was following the Riverside model. "You are serious?" Ryan said, his face cycling through shock, joy, and wonder. "Very serious. I am about 10 weeks along." Ryan picked her up, spinning her around like he had at their wedding. "We are having a baby." "Emma, we are having a baby." "I know. I just found out this morning, and I have been trying to figure out how to tell you all day." He kissed her, cutting off her rambling, pouring every ounce of love he felt into that kiss. Their daughter was born the following spring, a perfect little girl with Ryan's dark hair and Emma's determined expression. They named her Julia, after Ryan's father Jules. Emma took 3 months off, spending her days in a haze of feeding and diaper changes and overwhelming love. Ryan was a devoted father, taking on more childcare than Emma expected. He would bring Julia to the office in a carrier, walking around with her strapped to his chest while he reviewed plans. The entire cross-development team became surrogate aunts and uncles, cooing over Julia during meetings. "She is going to grow up thinking construction sites are normal," Emma said one afternoon, watching Ryan show their 6-month-old daughter a blueprint. "She is going to grow up knowing she can build anything she wants," Ryan corrected. "Like her mother." When Julia turned 1, Emma returned to work full-time, energized and full of new ideas. She had spent her maternity leave thinking about how cities could be more family-friendly, how development could better serve the needs of parents and children. Her next major project incorporated those ideas: child care centers integrated into commercial developments, family-friendly public spaces, parks designed with input from actual parents. Ryan watched her present these ideas to potential investors and fell in love with her all over again. Emma had always been brilliant, but motherhood had added a new dimension to her thinking, a deeper understanding of what people needed from the spaces they inhabited. Cross-development became known not just for sustainable design, but for family-focused planning. Other developers started copying their approach, which Ryan considered the highest compliment. 5 years after their wedding, Emma and Ryan stood at another groundbreaking ceremony, this time for a project in San Francisco. Julia, now 4 years old, wore a tiny hard hat and helped turn the ceremonial shovel of dirt. Their second daughter, Sophie, slept in a carrier on Ryan's chest. The project was their most ambitious yet, a full neighborhood redesign incorporating housing, schools, retail, and green space. It would take years to complete, but Emma had designed every element with care, thinking about the families who would live there, the children who would grow up in those spaces. "You know what is crazy?" Emma said that evening after the girls were asleep and they were relaxing on their balcony. "What?" 7 years ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop thinking my career was over. I had nothing except a portfolio full of rejections and crushing student debt. And now look at us. We have built this incredible company, this beautiful family. I am designing projects I could not have dreamed of back then. Ryan pulled her close. 7 years ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop thinking I had everything except what mattered. Then I overheard an interview and met someone who changed everything. You took a huge risk on me, Emma said. Best risk I ever took. Ryan kissed her temple. Though it was not really a risk, I knew from the moment I heard you defend your work. You were exactly what I needed. We were exactly what each other needed, Emma corrected. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Somewhere out there, families were living in buildings they had designed together. Communities were gathering in spaces they had created. And in their home, their daughters slept peacefully, dreaming whatever 4-year-olds and babies dream. The Riverside Project celebrated its 5th anniversary with a community festival. Thousands of people turned out, filling the plaza and the green spaces. Local businesses set up booths. Bands played on a stage Emma had designed for exactly this purpose. Children ran through the wetland paths, their laughter echoing across the water. Emma and Ryan walked through the celebration hand in hand, Julia skipping ahead while Sophie toddled between them. Residents stopped them to say thank you, to share how much they loved living there, to talk about the sense of community the design had fostered. This is what it is all about, Emma said to Ryan. Not the awards or the magazine features. This, people actually living better because of what we built. I love you, Ryan said simply. I love you too. Julia ran back to them, her face flushed with excitement. Mama, Papa, can we get ice cream? Absolutely, Ryan said, scooping her up. Ice cream for everyone. They got ice cream from a vendor in the plaza, finding a spot on the grass near the fountain. Sophie got more ice cream on her face than in her mouth. Julia chattered about her preschool friends. Ryan and Emma shared looks of contentment over their daughters' heads. This was the life they had built together. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and beautiful and deeply fulfilling. Emma thought about that terrible interview 7 years ago, James Preston's condescension, the crushing feeling that she had failed. She thought about Ryan overhearing through a thin wall and making a split-second decision to reach out. Everything had changed from that one moment. One person seeing her value when she had almost stopped seeing it herself. One job offer that became a career, a partnership, a love story, a family. What are you thinking about? Ryan asked, noticing her distant expression. About how different my life would be if you had taken the stairs that day instead of the elevator, Emma said. I never take the stairs, Ryan said, smiling. Bad knees. Lucky for me. Lucky for both of us. They stayed at the festival until sunset, watching the community they had helped create gather and celebrate. On the way home, Julia fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted from running around. Sophie was already passed out, her tiny hand clutching her favorite stuffed animal. That night, after the girls were in bed, Emma and Ryan sat in their home office, reviewing plans for their next project. It was late, but neither felt tired. This was their rhythm, their partnership, kids and work and love all mixed together. I have been thinking, Emma said, studying a site plan, about what comes next for the company. What about it? We have built something amazing, but I want to make sure we are setting it up to outlast us, creating systems and values that persist even when we are not the ones running things. Ryan set down his pencil. You are thinking about legacy. I am thinking about Julia and Sophie growing up in a world we helped shape. I want to make sure we are shaping it right. We will, Ryan said with certainty. Together, we will. And they did. Over the years that followed, Cross Development became an industry leader in sustainable, community-focused design. Emma trained the next generation of architects, passing on not just technical skills but a philosophy of thoughtful, purposeful building. Ryan structured the company as a benefit corporation, legally committing it to social and environmental responsibility alongside profit. Julia grew up fascinated by buildings, spending hours with Emma's sketchbooks, asking questions about design. Sophie loved the business side, sitting in on meetings with Ryan, asking about budgets and timelines. Neither parent pushed their daughters toward any particular path, but both secretly hoped at least one would join the family business someday. 10 years after that fateful Overheard interview, Cross Development celebrated its 20th anniversary. The company now had offices in 5 cities and over 200 employees. The Riverside project had become a model studied in architecture schools worldwide. Emma had been featured in Time magazine as one of the most influential architects of her generation. Ryan had been invited to speak at the White House about sustainable development, but their proudest moment was not any award or recognition. It was standing in the completed San Francisco project, watching thousands of families settle into homes designed with love and intention. It was seeing children play in parks they had envisioned. It was knowing that their work made lives tangibly better. At the anniversary gala, held at the original Riverside project, Emma gave a speech. She talked about the journey from desperate graduate to lead architect, about finding not just a career but a partner and a purpose. She talked about the importance of building communities, not just structures. And she talked about risk and opportunity and the incredible things that can happen when someone believes in you. Ryan watched from the front row, their daughters on either side of him, and felt his heart swell with pride and love. This extraordinary woman had walked into his life during her worst moment and had made everything better. She had brought vision and passion and depth to his company and his life. She had given him a family, a partnership, a purpose beyond profit. When Emma finished her speech to thunderous applause, Julia leaned over to Ryan and whispered, "Mama is amazing." "She really is," Ryan agreed. That night after the party, after the girls were asleep, Emma and Ryan returned to the roof where so much had begun. The city stretched out before them, transformed by their work and the work of others inspired by their example. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if James Preston had been nice to me?" Emma asked, leaning against the railing. "You would have taken that job, designed boring buildings, and been miserable," Ryan said immediately. "Maybe. Or maybe I would have learned and grown there too. Maybe, but then I never would have met you, and that is unacceptable," Emma laughed. "So really we should thank James Preston." "Absolutely not," Ryan said firmly, making Emma laugh harder. He pulled her close, and they stood together in the cool night air, watching their city breathe and glow. Below them, the Riverside project hummed with life, lights in windows, people on evening walks, the sound of music from a restaurant. Evidence of community, of thoughtful design, of love manifested in steel and glass and green spaces. "I would do it all again," Emma said softly. "Every moment, every challenge, every late night. All of it. Even the time Sophie threw up on your presentation boards right before the city council meeting. Even that," Emma smiled, "because this life we built. It is everything I never knew I wanted." "It is everything, period," Ryan said, kissing her. "You are everything." They stayed on that roof for hours, talking about the past and planning the future, held by the same certainty that had brought them together. That some risks are worth taking, that talent deserves opportunity, that love and work and purpose can intertwine into something extraordinary. And in the morning, they would wake up and do it all again. Design and build, parent and partner, create spaces where life could flourish. Together, the way they had been since that day, Ryan overheard an interview through a thin wall and made a decision that changed everything. Julia entered architecture school at age 18, following directly in Emma's footsteps. Sophie surprised everyone by studying social work, but eventually merged her passion with the family business, specializing in community development and stakeholder engagement. Both daughters joined cross-development after graduation, bringing fresh perspectives and energy. Ryan and Emma stepped back from day-to-day operations when Julia was 25 and Sophie, 23, transitioning into advisory roles. They had built something that could thrive without them, which felt like the ultimate success. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Ryan recreated their first date, reserving the same small Italian restaurant in Fremont. They had changed, gray in Ryan's hair now, lines around Emma's eyes from years of squinting at blueprints and smiling at their daughters. But the essential connection remained. 20 years, Emma marveled. How is that possible? Because we were always meant to find each other, Ryan said, even if it took James Preston being a jerk to make it happen. Emma laughed, the same bright sound that had captivated Ryan 2 decades ago. I love you. I have loved you since you offered me that job on an empty lot. I love you. I have loved you since I heard you defend your vision through a wall. They kissed across the table, comfortable and familiar, and still electric after all these years. Later, walking through the city they had helped shape, Emma reflected on how impossible this life would have seemed that day in the coffee shop. How she had been so certain her dreams were dying, not realizing they were about to begin. You know what I think about sometimes, Emma said. What? All the other people sitting in coffee shops right now, thinking their lives are over, thinking they have failed. How many of them are one conversation away from everything changing? Probably most of them, Ryan said. That is how life works. Everything can change in a moment. We should create a mentorship program, Emma said suddenly, through cross-development. Help young architects who are struggling to break in. Give them the opportunities nobody else will. Ryan stopped walking, turning to face her with a huge smile. That is brilliant. Let's do it. And they did. The Cross-Development Fellowship Program launched the following year, providing stipends, mentorship, and real project experience to emerging architects from underrepresented backgrounds. Emma personally mentored the first cohort, passing on not just technical skills but the courage to defend their visions. The program became one of Cross-Development's most successful initiatives, launching dozens of careers and diversifying the architecture field. Alumni went on to start their own firms, win major awards, and design buildings that pushed the field forward. Emma and Ryan's legacy was not just the buildings they created, but the lives they changed and the opportunities they provided. They had taken their own story, an overheard interview, an unexpected offer, a leap of faith, and multiplied it, giving others the same chance Ryan had given Emma. On Emma's 60th birthday, the American Institute of Architects gave her their highest honor, recognizing not just her designs but her contributions to the profession. Ryan sat in the front row, as he always did, watching his wife accept the award with characteristic grace and humility. In her acceptance speech, Emma told the story she had told 100 times but never tired of repeating. About the worst interview of her life, about a stranger who overheard and decided to take a chance, about how one moment of kindness and recognition had changed everything. "I tell this story not to celebrate my success," Emma said, "but to remind everyone here that we have the power to change lives. Every time we hire someone, mentor someone, or simply believe in someone, we create possibility. Ryan Cross saw possibility in me when I could not see it myself, and that made all the difference." Ryan wiped tears from his eyes as the audience applauded. After the ceremony, surrounded by colleagues and friends and their grown daughters, Emma found her way to his side. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For overhearing that interview, for calling me, for believing in me, for building this life with me, for everything." Ryan pulled her close, kissing her forehead the way he had 1,000 times before. "Thank you for saying yes. To the job, to dinner, to marrying me, to all of it." "Always," Emma said. "I will always say yes to you." They had been saying yes to each other for more than 30 years by then. Yes to love, yes to partnership, yes to building something meaningful together. Yes to late nights and early mornings, to challenges and triumphs, to raising daughters and creating communities, to growing old side by side. It had started with an overheard conversation and a leap of faith. It had become everything. As the sun set on that celebration, Emma and Ryan stood together looking at a model of their latest project, a community center designed with input from Julia and Sophie, incorporating everything they had learned over decades of thoughtful development. New ideas built on the foundation they had created. "We did good," Emma said softly. "We did great," Ryan corrected, "and we are not done yet." He was right. There were still buildings to design, communities to serve, lives to change. There were grandchildren to come, new chapters to write, more years to spend together doing work they loved with the person they loved most. The night James Preston had dismissed Emma's dreams, she had driven home thinking her career was over before it began. She had cried on her bathroom floor, wondering if she should have chosen a different path. But really, she had been exactly where she needed to be, sitting in that coffee shop at that exact moment, waiting for a stranger to overhear, to care, to reach out and offer not just a job but a future. Ryan had given her an opportunity. She had given him purpose. Together, they had built something extraordinary, not just buildings and businesses, but a love story that proved the best risks are the ones we take on people, and the best investments are the ones we make in each other. 35 years after that terrible interview, Emma and Ryan sat in rocking chairs on the porch of their house on Bainbridge Island, watching ferries cross the Sound. Julia's children played in the yard, building elaborate structures from blocks, already showing signs of the family obsession with design. Sophie visited that weekend with her new husband, bringing homemade pie and laughter. Emma and Ryan held hands, silent and content, their life together evident in every moment. The easy comfort, the shared glances, the decades of partnership visible in how they moved together. "I love you," Ryan said, "not for the first time and not for the last." "I love you," Emma replied, the words as true as they had ever been. And in the gathering twilight, surrounded by family and the life they had built, Emma thought about young architects sitting in coffee shops right now, nervous and uncertain, their futures unwritten. She hoped someone would take a chance on them the way Ryan had taken a chance on her. She hoped they would be brave enough to say yes, because sometimes the worst moments lead to the best beginnings. Sometimes failure is just the door opening to something better, and sometimes all it takes is someone believing in you to change everything. That was their story. An overheard interview, an unexpected offer, a leap of faith. It became a career, a partnership, a family, a legacy. It became love in its fullest form, built carefully, one choice at a time, into something that would last forever.